CRM is an acronym that stands for Customer Relationship Management. In the nonprofit world, the key thing really is the word relationship. So relationships are what really make fundraising work well. What this really reflects is an overall systematic approach to building relationships with as many potential supporters as you can possibly find. The reason that I think a lot of organizations are looking to change their CRM or to adopt one in the first place is because the way in which we fundraise has changed over the years, and the ability to get a good, strong ROI out of all types of donors has changed over the years. And that is probably one area where the electronic tools have really made things a lot easier. It's respectful to donors, but it's also a good return on investment and a good way to manage for charities.
CRM is any kind of application, spreadsheet, access database, any kind of database that allows you to track your relationship to your donors. How will our organization use this tool? Ultimately, a database is a tool. The reason why a lot of organizations go to a CRM is because it really helps take or automate a lot of the tasks that we would forget to do. Because if we just use spreadsheets, then so much of what we would do would be manual, and we would add a code here but forget to add it there, or not be consistent. And consistency is important in any database.
So when I was a CEO of a nonprofit charity, we tried to capture a lot of the information on spreadsheets and in our file systems, and it was very low cost, but we were missing out a lot of different information. We had a consultant come up and really emphasize and encourage us to invest into a very robust CRM, which we did, and it changed our whole fundraising perspective around. So the CRM let us start to capture the relationship itself. We were able to then line up people with what they were interested in the organization. So we had a lot of different cases, a lot of different funds, and the donors could then match up their donation, which was with something that they were passionate with. And so it started changing the relationship of the donation. The donation came to the community, and it came to community investments. Our donor retention went up because what they were donating to was a community building project.
Of course, we'd like to be able to contact people, so name and address, email address, phone number, all of the usual kinds of things, social media handles. When we think of a relationship, we think about interactions, and the interaction is the content of what happens when you're speaking with someone or hearing from them or going back and forth with them. The electronic tools that we have today certainly allow that kind of a capture of data to happen much more efficiently. So it's now possible to be able to track the types of information that you're gathering across all kinds of levels of donors and all kinds of levels of interaction. Beyond that, there is the transactional, so the types of donations that a person may make, the other types of support that they may give. Volunteering certainly is key. Really, we can begin with the notion of wanting to try to capture every way in which a donor interacts with you.
So each organization or each program or person who manages a portfolio needs to figure out what they want to measure. So in year one, it might be bodies, donors, people who attend an event, whatever it may be, and maybe dollar amounts. That's usually the baseline. But with each subsequent year, you want to measure maybe one or two elements more. So maybe do most of our attendees also give to our annual program? Do our annual fund donors who respond to the direct mail piece, do they also respond to the online appeal? And extrapolate different levels of how you can correlate this data, because your donors give in various ways. but talk to the other folks in your organization and how can you see that data coming together and immerse yourself in that data. Pull those reports daily, weekly. You should know what your counts are, what your donor counts, average gift amount, launching a new program. Think about, where do you want to be? What is it that you want to measure first? And engage your data person and help me figure out what we are going. I want to track value X, but you need to figure out what you're tracking before you launch your program.
So when we invested in a CRM that was a little bit more robust, we were able to find a lot more measurements, a lot more reporting, which is more meaningful for the CEO, for myself, for the staff, and for the board. So we were able to look at how many donations were coming in, how many donors we had, how many gifts came in, how many meetings we had, the conversion rate. We could analyze information far better than we could when we didn't have a system. So even when we looked at all of our fundraising was relationship based, but we did have a couple events in a year, and then looking at those events in a different way as well, not just how many people attended and how much money came in, but when we were able to capture the information, we could then look at and create a better plan for the following year, having very solid information that we would get off of our CRM. The other part of that is our board members started looking at fundraising in a different way. They weren't looking at fund development just as a check that came in. They started looking at the relationships. So when I started reporting on how many donors we had, how many gifts we had, how many meetings we had, how many relationships we were building, it changed the culture of philanthropy in our organization with a better CRM.
The key to really being effective is to make sure that all that data comes together in one spot. And that's what a really, really good CRM does for a charity. So bringing all that data together means that you're making fewer mistakes in terms of how to contact someone on a very practical level, but also gives you some powerful, powerful tools as you begin to understand the levels of engagement and the ways in which people like to respond to what you're doing. Data integration is critical to the effort to really grow the relationship with the person, and it's a sign of respect to the donor that you're reacting to what they would like to hear and where they would like to hear it. Combinations of interactions are even more powerful, and that is where the power of a CRM really hits the road. So the notion that you could bring together different types of interactions with people, analyze them and understand the degree to which that person is engaged with you, which may have implications for even down to the amount of money that you ask them to support you with, are really important these days. But the cost of a system, of a CRM, is not insignificant. This is a medium to long-term kind of decision. It should be viewed as an investment, not an expense. And it should be something that the expectations are managed around, so that you will see that over the medium to long term, you really will be better off than you would have been if you had not made the decision to either upgrade or to add a CRM in the first place.
A very easy point of integration for many organizations is your development office and your finance office should be speaking to one another. Integration doesn't necessarily mean that the data automatically goes over to one system or swims over to another system. It just means that you can somehow synchronize it or send data over. Another point of integration can be with other departments. We're often very siloed and we're all busy trying to do our thing, meet our goals, but are we stopping to look around and saying, hey, can we leverage what others in our organization are doing? Then there's the third piece. So are we integrating with our website? Can the website data come down into our database? If not, how do we make that happen? Is it a spreadsheet or is it a report that you have to key in? Figure out how you want to integrate. That is also really, really important. Draw it out on a whiteboard if you have to, but you should know how all the data flows into your database.
So when we look at our relationships and our staff are great at developing really good relationships and connecting with people, having meetings, understanding how they want to change our community, how they want to invest our community. But often some of the staff will leave or turn over, and the relationship has to be with the individual staff person, but it also has to be with the organization. Our CRM was able to capture the meetings, capture the meeting notes, capture what passions that donor had to create a stronger community, and they wanted to see the outcomes. So when we were able to capture that information, we could make sure if somebody left the organization, that relationship just got picked up by the next person. They would review that information on the CRM. They would see what the notes were from the last meeting. They would capture that. They would know what materials were already sent out, what they were interested in, and they could carry on that relationship. So it changed it from a financial transaction to a relationship with the organization, and also how that donor can invest into the community to make a stronger community.
Sick Kids is a completely data-driven, very technologically sound organization that still has the capability to bring things down to a human level. I think they are the counterexample that proves that it's entirely possible to have a strong system that leads you to human relationships. They are painting a picture of the type of person that they are dealing with and giving themselves a really deep understanding of the best way in which to interact with those people. So where they have invested in a lot of technology, they have also invested in showing each donor that they respect them in such a manner that they are able to talk to them in the way in which they would prefer. So really the ways in which Sick Kids operates, while heavily resourced and therefore perhaps difficult to contemplate for most charities, is also an example of the ways in which, on a different scale, most charities could behave.
We do a lot of development office to finance office integration. And usually that's the integration that most clients avoid dearly, because development counts one way, the finance office counts a different way. We don't always balance, but we really need to balance. That is our role and a way we steward for our donors. So that integration point, that handshake between the two systems, is ideally between a fund or a designation on the development side to a general account on the financial side. And once you bring these two elements together, many clients have found great ways and efficiencies, primarily because you eliminate data entry on the development side and data entry on the finance side. You also increase the level of efficiency because now you've developed a symbiotic relationship, and both teams need to understand a little bit about what's happening on the other side. And we often can see at least a 20 to 25, sometimes even 40% efficiency improvement with clients because they've eliminated the double entry. They've increased the level of reliability of the data, and that also increases everyone's use of the data. So it's a great win-win all the way around. But one of the big things that an organization can do is invest in training. Not just one-time training when you implement the system, but long-term, ongoing training. There should be a lot of overlap in the training because, as we know, in the world of development, there is great staff turnover. So we need to make sure that our systems and our processes far outlive the people who are using them.
So when I worked with the YWCA of Regina, and they were having a challenging time capturing the information, making sure we were doing right with the donors coming in, doing the reports for their staff, their CEO, and for their board. So I helped them implement and invest in a Razor's Edge program. And Razor's Edge is kind of at the top of the line for CRMs. It's a really good CRM. But as we train the staff and capture the information, it really helped us develop the cases, what we were fundraising for, and also the appeals on how we were asking. So it really gave us a lot of detail on there. And it also had a really nice online investment feature so that we could have donations coming online and capture that information, do an email, record how many emails were opened, how many responses were read, how much donations came back. So it was a really good evaluation on that. And it really changed around the fundraising in the organization. They were already well positioned. They do great work in the community, but being able to capture this information took their fundraising to a next level. I also work with another organization, and they have a very limited budget and very challenging on some of the resources. They have a very simplified system. So we looked at Canada Helps, and they've changed their system around in the last little while here so that you can list the funds there. So it helped develop a clearer case, clearer funds for the organization, so people knew what they were donating to. They were donating the funds that spoke to them. So the Canada Helps system was really nice. The other nice thing was we were able to put a form right on their website. And having a form on your own website makes it a little easier, and there's a little bit more confidence, and you can put more information about what they're fundraising for and what the funds are on the website. The work that we're doing, we can have the outcomes on there, and they can direct their donation right to that fund. So Canada Helps is at one end of the spectrum. It's very easy to put in. It's a little bit more limited than a Razor's Edge, but both CRMs are able to capture more information than just the basic transaction, and you're able to then work with your donors in a more meaningful way so that they can help invest into your community and make a change in your community.